Thank you, David. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and visit with you and present this case study. This is the first of two case studies that we'll go through. And this one is a case study that deals with branded food products database for public health. I appreciate Rob's introduction, a little bit on who ILSI is. It's the International Life Science Institute. We were founded in 1978, and we're a worldwide nonprofit group. And our basic mission is to improve the general health of the public related to scientific issues with nutrition, food safety, toxicology, risk assessment, and the environment. So there is a global network. There's currently 17 ILSI branches around the world. And partnerships and collaboration are vital to the whole philosophy that ILSI was built on. We talk about our tripartite philosophy, and that is that if academic scientists, industry scientists, and government scientists come together to discuss these issues, we're more likely to have a solution that works for everybody. So ILSI looks to have a neutral forum where these activities can be conducted. So it's a natural outgrowth for us to get involved in public-private partnerships. In 2007, our board took on a general initiative that we talk about conflicts of interest in general. And one of the first activities that we dealt with was guiding principles for private funding of research. We then looked at criteria for who sits on an advisory committee and what happens there. The last few years, the focus has been on these principles for building public-private partnerships. And this publication in Nutrition Reviews was the result of those activities. It came out in October of 2013, and it was included in your meeting materials. So you do have that, and it is open access. So from these principles, what we really did in our work was to synthesize what was already out there. So many agencies, many organizations had these types of principles, but they weren't in a published literature. They really sat within an organization. And so we did not really make new principles, but sort of synthesized about 25 different existing principles and organizations' information. Again, I'm not going to go through these. It's in your materials. Having these principles, though, our board said, you need to look at doing a case study. You've got these principles, prove that they actually work. Look for a project upon which you can get involved and put these principles into practice. At the same time we were doing our work over the last few years, a number of other organizations were doing the same type of work in their organizations. One of them was the National Cancer Institute at NIH and USDA's Office for Research, Education, and Extension. And they were looking at how do we enhance the translation of nutrition science from the bench to the food supply, looking at partnerships. Another one was our National Academies of Science and the Institute of Medicine. And through their Food Forum program, they looked at building multi-sectorial partnerships in food and nutrition. And those are also published and available on their principles for partnerships. What really brought this together for us was that out of the Obama administration at the end of 2011, there was put out a memoranda on accelerating technology transfer and commercialization of federal research in support of high-growth businesses. The bottom line here is what's important, is that I encourage agencies with federal laboratories and other research facilities to engage in public-private partnerships in those technical areas of importance to the agency's mission. Well, this was really fortuitous for us as we were looking to find some place to do our principles, because USDA identified 32 initiatives, one of them around this enhanced translation of nutrition sciences. In particular, how do we augment our branded foods database? So why did we need this partnership? why should this be done as a public-private partnership when the government has had a nutrient database for over 100 years? Well, that was just the problem. They have been in the business for over 100 years, going back to W.O. Atwater and the activities that were done back then. However, there's 8,000 foods in that database. It is very robust, it is very extensive, but on the grocery shelf, there's hundreds of thousands of branded products that are not in this database. And the way they approach it now, it's about $50,000 per new food analysis, the way that they do it. They realize we need to expand this and we need to have a way to do it. Well, who has the information? Well, the food industry has the food composition data on their products. And the food industry recognized that the request for this information is just getting greater and greater from customers, from marketing groups, from everyone else. So can we find a place where everybody can come together, share this information, have it as a gold standard, and not have to customize it for everybody who wants it and to put it into the public domain? So there was sort of a natural fit here, and timing was good. With that, we put together, at USDA's request, we put together this partnership. So it's ILSI North America, the ATIP Foundation, which is Agricultural Technology Innovation Platforms, and is a new foundation that the government established, and then USDA's Ag Research Service. And it is Branded Food Products Database for Public Health. You notice here this ATIP Foundation, and if you listen to Andrea's presentation, having that neutral convener, having a foundation that can operate outside of government but is connected with government and be able to have that liaison was a pretty important part in being able to start this partnership and to be able to move forward for us. But getting started is always the tough part. As researchers, we always have a tendency to want to, okay, we've got the idea, let's hop into the methods and get going. That's what we do. That's why we do what we do. However, in starting this partnership, some of the things you need to do is at the front side. Andrea pointed those out, and I'll point them out again, is that you need to first say, what is the justification? You need to formally look at it and say, write it out. Why is this partnership justified? Why can it not be done alone? Why is it should be done? It might be justified. Everybody says, yes, this is a good idea. We all want to do it. It's justified. Then you need to ask, is it feasible? At this time with these people, given the resources and stuff, is it really feasible that we can do this and complete it? And then the third one is governance. How are we going to do this? What are the roles? What are the responsibilities? Is it going to be operated on consensus? Is it going to do, all of those things need to be dealt with. And we spent probably 3 or 4 months after we decided that this was something we wanted to do, going through these steps before we ever got in to the how we're going to do it, and the methods aspect. So this is the overall structure for this partnership. It's got ILSI North America, the foundation, and ARS. And out of that, we have a steering committee. This is the operational hub, is the steering committee. There's, in this group, there's subcommittees. There's an IT infrastructure committee, a communications group, operations and management, and a criteria group, with another part of that is data quality subgroup. So this whole structure was laid out on how we were going to operate it and how it would move forward. So last year we've been going through the development phase, which is the activities of each one of these subcommittees, from steering, communications, criteria, and infrastructure. Listening sessions. This was one of the big things within there. We had partnerships, we had industry, government, all involved in this. But there is a lot of people out there, and everyone in this room can appreciate it, a lot of people who will either use those data, contribute those data, or somehow get involved in this database. So we conducted listening sessions to make sure that we engaged all the various sectors with interest and made them aware that the activity was actually going on so they could plan for it, they could get involved, whatever. And so there was 14 different universities involved in the listening sessions, 4 professional societies, 11 federal government agencies, end user groups, food industry groups, retail industry, 1 chain restaurant, and 10 trade associations. As if you're in the academic world and you haven't dealt with trade associations in the past, don't forget that they have an interest in most of the things that you will be involved in a partnership aspect. The criteria group put together attributes. In this, it's a new term for me, attributes. We think about data lines, data connections, but anything that's a data plot in these databases and the connections here, people use the term attributes. So we have 8 attributes that have to be part of the phase 1. This is the data that will be collected. And then in phase 2, the attribute here is food group classifications. So if you're going to put it into patterns and stuff, you're going to have to convert the nutrition data into food group classifications. So the phase 1 attributes are really just the information that comes off the nutrition facts panel. So it is the company, the nutrition data, weights and measures, serving size, date stamps, when was this reformulated, ingredient list, and then the G10 number, which the UPC code is what we most talk about, but it's a global, and I'll have it someplace later, but the G10 number is how we're going to connect through all this data. There's an awful lot of other attributes that can be connected. So everything from allergens to bioactives to nutrient claims, all of these things will flow after phase 1 collection. So there's a huge amount of data. In fact, through the UPC code group that does this, the GS1 system, they've got a new initiative where they're talking about setting standards for 3,000 new attributes. The system was originally built on a business-to-business logistics type of thing. How do I sell you something in the size that you want when you want it? But all of these new attributes will be part of this transparency and all the information. So a huge amount of information that'll be available in the future, in the near future. So from the infrastructure standpoint, it is this GS1 system, which is the UPC interconnection, that we will use to bring this data into USDA's nutrient data base. So this is a schematic of it. There's a way for large producers here on the left-hand side that are already using this to bring the information in. But you also have to make sure on the far side that small producers also, so everybody has a way to put their data into this. Some of these data could be aggregated, and this is planning for the future. There's data that might be important, maybe more on the food safety side, that you don't want to have as specific to any product, but it's important. If you think about some of the issues around arsenic, nobody ever put arsenic in their food, but it happens to fall out and get into rice. So how can you aggregate these data? So there's planning for being able to take those types of data and stuff in the future as well. And all of this data will then flow into USDA's publicly available database. All of this has been put together. It was developed into a report and presented to USDA Undersecretary Kathy Wotecki in February. So we are now into what we call the implementation phase. We know how we're going to do it. We've got all the things lined up, and we're getting ready to move forward. So in the implementation phase, part of it is long-term resource support. Andrea pointed out about having that third-party group as fundraising in a place where funds can be accumulated. ATIP Foundation for us will be that group that can bring that together. And we're looking right now at having a sustaining council that will be able to pull that together, have the funding, and have that interactions that was described by Andrea for NIH Foundation. The big thing for us immediately will be our beta testing, to actually put data in, run it through the system, and get it into USDA's. Here at the bottom, new research paradigm for data use. The things, as we've been looking at how this data comes together and how big it is and the opportunities, the things that you can query with it, it's incredible. And I think everyone in this room should be thinking and planning about a huge opportunity to question nutrition policy, fortification. You just keep going down through the issues. There's going to be a huge amount of data, and it's a different paradigm from how we've used these data in the past. So the beta test is going to involve, we have several members that are pretty advanced in this and have volunteered to submit their data and put it through. We look to do this in the next 90 days and then be able to open it up and start collecting data on a larger scale. So we have major manufacturers as well as private labeled groups to be able to run through this beta test and collect these data. However, we're moving into this implementation phase, and one of the first steps that we will do is to go back as a complete partnership and say, are we following these principles? For ILSI, it was all about the case study testing of these principles. And so we'll come back and challenge ourselves, are we on track? Are we following the principles? And can we move forward as the way this partnership should operate so that we're successful in the end? Thank you.